Today's session is about the overlap between leadership and coaching. At Coacharia, that's something that we 100% believe and how we work with our leaders. In fact, we do this coaching by coach training approach as well with leaders because there's such an overlap, congruence, alignment, whatever you want to call it, between leadership and coaching. So yeah, we're in this. But the reason why we wanted to do a webinar specifically on this topic is A, because we've got an extra Wednesday this week or this month, so why not use it? And B, just to kind of, foundationally spell out, point out that alignment, because while it's obvious to us, it may not be obvious to everybody. And as with all the things that we do, if we can help, we Coacharia community in general, we can help you, everybody, anybody on the planet, be a tiny bit better, whether it's at your life, your job, your self-esteem, your whatever, then you know what, that's great. We're happy with that. And I personally think that being a bit more aware when you're in a leadership position about being more aware about the coaching competencies, I think it's going to help you quite a bit. If just to kind of get that connection in your mind. So today we're going to talk about that. And on the panel are two NCCs. I'm the crash test dummy as usual. But Vijay is very passionate about leadership in general and coaching and being awesome. And Cindy literally has a PhD in leadership in addition to all her other accolades, which are plentiful and amazing. So I think we're all in this for the right reasons. But Cindy's going to drive. But before she does, I wanted to bring up the actual coaching competencies on the screen, because as I was preparing for this webinar, emotionally, I read through them again, and it's kind of ridiculous how aligned they are. So just take a look at them quickly so you can see that I'm not crazy. So ICF Coaching Competencies demonstrates ethical practice. Yes, if you're a leader, like, you need to be ethical. Foundational stuff, don't need to talk about it. Embodies a coaching mindset. So that's what we're going to focus on today, I'm told by Cindy. So being open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. So we'll go into that in a second, but establish and maintains agreements. If you're in a leadership position, if you're a manager, you definitely need that, right? You need to, you set goals, you agree on KPIs, you need a way to measure whether your team and your team members and the company that you're working at, are they successful, right? So like, again, that's something that if you're not in agreement, then how are you gonna know it's actually working well? So that was a big tick. Cultivates trust and safety. If we go back to Ram's favorite study, Project Aristotle at Google, the #1 success factor for teams is psychological safety. Again, like, no ambiguity there, right? Crazy. Maintains presence. Who, hands up, has had a manager who feels like they weren't paying attention to you, or they didn't think what you were saying is important, or you felt like you couldn't speak up to your manager? I mean, I have, and they weren't good managers. So maintaining presence with your team, like, totally makes sense to me. Listens actively. Duh. Again, it's about that relationship you're building with your team. Evokes awareness. Shows you, if your manager shows you that, yes, they're listening to you. They think that you're an important part of the team, that your contributions matter, like, that you're doing a great job. Like, how amazing is that? And facilitates client growth. If you're a leader, I'm guessing that part of the reason why you wanted to be in a position of leadership in the first place, or managing people, is because you wanted to improve things, to help things grow, to help people be better, to advance their careers, to follow their dreams. I mean, I know that's the reason why I work with teams. I don't necessarily love the detailed work, but I choose to work with people because it's really cool to see them grow and to see them develop and to see them achieve things that they didn't think were possible. So again, like, I just, I'm a little bit, but my mind literally was blown when I read through these one by one and thought, like, crap, when I was in my first leadership position, I wish that I had that awareness of how the coaching competencies, like what they are and how they directly align with what I should be doing as a manager and as a leader. Because yes, I was doing a lot of these, thank God. Good job, Magda. But some of them I wasn't, let's be honest. And some of them I didn't have the awareness that I should be doing them. And I would have been the better manager, better leader if I had been. So anyway, that's my little primer because I thought it was really cool. I'm going to stop talking now, and Cindy is going to drive, and Vijay is going to be the other mastermind, and I will be here to hopefully contribute as well. Cindy?
Absolutely. And just to clear, PhD, almost there. So to all our coaches and attendees on the call, welcome. It's wonderful to be with you on the 4th Friday or the 4th Wednesday of the month. No, 5th, the 5th Wednesday of the month. Special
This is
month.
a coaching webinar, not a math webinar. But it's fine.
I'm normally so good at maths. Okay. Right, it's the dental work. I blame it on that. Coaches, when Magda raised this topic, I thought, how lovely this is, because exactly that's what it is, right? And in the background, over the last few days, I began to do a mapping of the qualities and skill sets and mindset of a leader and that of coaching. And it's amazing how much of similarities there are. In fact, I found very few differences or some things that stood out. It was more a well-aligned commonality approach of coaching and what is leadership, or how do leaders show up. And just to draw a framework for today's topic, in addition to the one Magda did, there is a beautiful flow of active listening and questioning and presence and direct communication, accountability and progress, and embodying some kind of mindset. And what we call ethics, a quality of a leader is that of integrity and around trust and compassion and empathy. So you can see that within that framing that I did now, how much of that is actually coaching? It's coaching. And not only that, it's how coaches show up, which leads me to this lovely point I'd like to make, that all coaches are leaders, because we do lead, right? And I want to further embed that with, you can't really be a leader if you don't have followers. So of course, all leaders, no matter who, have followers. What makes followers want to follow us? What makes followers want to follow a leader? There has to be something there. You can call it charisma, magnetic, engaging, connecting, but there's something there that does all this attraction to a leader. It's motivating, inspiring, empowering, kind of qualities, supportive, fully engaged, partnering, all those qualities that make up a leader. We'll dive deeper into particular qualities in a few minutes, but I do want to ask Vijay to do some kind of overall sharing about what she wants to around the topic of leadership before we do any kind of deep dives. Vijay?
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Magda. I literally crashed in here and Cindy was quick to pull me onto the other side. And yes, Magda, I am not dressed for the occasion, but you're not going to believe this. I was actually planning to, call it a day. Then Cindy said this, and I just didn't have the heart to say no. So there's something about this space that kind of draws you and the topic. So I want to actually start with that, right? I think in some senses, if you really, whether you take coaching presence or you take leadership presence, right? It's not a task that you do. And that's the thought I walked in with. It is, I think, just showing up is who you are. So today, I think walking in here, I'm totally unprepared. And right? You guys have seen me work on other webinars where I'm perfectly capable of preparing for weeks in advance and all of that, right? And yet I don't feel inauthentic. Because if I did, I would have pulled out, right? I kind of would have said no. So that leaves me with just that thought, saying that, is it, whether it's as a coach or as a leader, is it in contracted engagements? Is it in specific situations that you're expected to perform that job? Or is it more of who we show up as? And that's really the opening thought in my head. And you're right, Cindy. I think there are more parallels than differences. But also, I think having played, I think all of us are leaders, right? So that's the other thing of contexting. And you and I have had this conversation before about being followers. I think leadership starts with self-leadership. So it's highly possible for somebody to be regarded a leader where they don't have formal teams, or they're pretty much lone rangers. And yet they are people that people look up to, people consider as role models. People are watching them, right? Without having a direct set of followers or a team. So I think leadership starts there. That's the other point. And that kind of leads me to also say that while there are lots of similarities, I'm sure practically the roles are not, I won't say, same to same. They're similar, but I think they're not the same. So I'll just kind of park with that and stop here. We'll come back to that.
And Vijay, both Vijay and Magda, that's absolutely true, right? While we can theoretically or practically point out all the similarities between coaching and leading or leadership, leaders don't necessarily show up exactly how we're saying they should, right? Because some show up with a few of those qualities, some show up with a lot more, and it's normally an ongoing process. And as Magda said earlier on, some things you're not aware of, and something happens to trigger off awareness and learning and our moments, or somebody points it out to you, and then you begin to grow and develop around it. So you begin to kind of embody this growth and development mindset that is similar to coaching, right? Not all leaders, I think the point I'm making, not all leaders show up with leadership qualities.
Might I dare to say, like, not all coaches show up with coaching qualities, or would that be
of course
controversial? No, I couldn't resist that. And I mean, I think people in the profession are human, right?
Yeah. I should have left you in the audience, right?
Sorry about that. I could not.
That's okay. Please go.
Help it. I wish Ram was here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But Magda, you can play that role, right? Do play devil's advocate if you want.
Oh, I'm the wrong person for that, because I 100% agree. If Vijay wasn't going to say it, I was going to.
Yeah. So should we do some diving into embodies a coaching mindset and do some parallels to leaders or leadership? Yeah,
I think that's a good idea. Good place to start.
Yeah. So to the participants and coaches on the call, I'd like to ask you a question. Please feel free to do some typing. What does good leadership mean for you? What does it mean for you? Qualities of a leader. What comes to mind for you? And we'd love to hear from your experience, meaning what is showing up in you right now when you think about qualities of a leader? And while you're doing that, I will do some talking. So this core competency embodies a coaching mindset. The definition of it is around develops and maintains a mindset that's open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. And I love this word, develops and maintains a mindset. Because that maintains is kind of quite a challenging space. That sometimes things could go really wrong. And even when things are not working out well, and you feel the urge to blow off your top and, burst of anger or whatever emotion that's showing up for you, you still know that you're a leader or a coach, and you want to still continue maintaining that kind of mindset. And perhaps in coaching, we would, of course, refer to it as ethics, or we show up with professional standards. And in coaching, in leading, it's more the reference to integrity, how much of integrity a person shows up with, and what integrity means for them. And of course, you can break integrity down in many levels of integrity. What does it mean within your space? Coaching mindset talks about, I'm just going to randomly pick up from the competencies as it shows up. It talks about being mentally and emotionally preparing for a session, or the coach mentally and emotionally prepares for a session. And I think the more the highlight here, and I'm sure Vijay, you want to add to this, I can see it on your face, is around how mentally and emotionally prepared you are for the way you're showing up. Now, some of us will do all that in the background and can still show up as themselves, meaning quite authentic. I'm sure you all noticed that in Magda, that she shows up in a very authentic way with all her jokes and I'll just call it in inverted commas, silly language, and it shows up with a lot of leadership as a CEO of Cotaria and leading quite a large organization. So Magda, contribute to that. What helps you being emotionally and mentally ready in the way you show up?
I think it was a bit of a journey. Right now, it's just, I am who I am. Who else am I going to be? Everyone is taken. I'm going to be myself. You know what I mean? So right now, it's not that for a coaching conversation, I need to kind of take a deep breath, step away from devices, not be distracted by other stimuli before I'm doing a coaching conversation. But when it comes to conversations with my team or team members, coworkers, etc., I don't have to do that anymore. It's just automatic because I know that I can be myself with them, and I know that they know who I am, I know who they are, and I know that we're on the same page already. So yeah, in leadership context, I don't need that preparation anymore. I do need the grounding and kind of the empty headspace when I go into a coaching conversation. But I say it's a bit of a journey for me because on the leadership front, especially because I've experienced not being reporting to, I'm trying to be nice in my words so I don't offend people more than I intend to. I've been on the receiving end of not such great leadership, as well as some amazing leadership. So especially Roger, if you're watching this, Still love you. But, you know, some leaders, like you can tell if they aren't grounded when you go into especially like, you know, one-on-one check-in or anything to do with progress. You can tell them the energy when they're flustered, when they're not paying attention. It's just so obvious that I vowed to myself, I will never make anybody who works for me or with me feel as insignificant or little or whatever that I have felt from a previous manager. So it's a conscious choice I made a long time ago that I want to be an authentic leader. People deserve authentic leaders. They deserve to be able to be who they are and say what's on their mind. So that's who I'm going to be. And that's how anyone who works for me and with me should feel like they can be, because they're not going to get punished for saying something wrong, if that makes sense.
I love what you said. You spoke about this meaningfulness of meaning. Yeah. But meaning, people should be, you don't want to make people feel meaningless. Meaning, what did you say? Yeah. So just to pick up that, of course, that's a coaching approach, right? There's meaningfulness, importance, significance in the way a coach would do some development and drawing out from clients. And say it's a similar way leaders do that with their followers, right? Or followers are attracted to leaders because they find some kind of meaningfulness and significance in being a part of this community or whatever the leader is doing. So there has to be this kind of meaningfulness, significance, importance, purpose, intention, values, that somebody feels quite drawn to another person. Very similar to a coaching approach.
Cindy, I want to bring in a perspective here. So I was really thinking when you and Magda were sharing that bit, right? And just taking a step back and say, you know, embodying a coaching mindset. What are the kind of elements, right, of that competency if you really kind of unpack it? And if I were to connect it to leadership, I would broadly three dimensions or three pillars stand out for me. You know, I did say leadership is about showing up, coaching is about showing up, but you reach that state with a lot of work in the background, right? With the seriousness and sincerity and the professionalism that you bring to things. It doesn't matter whether your preparation is just before your coaching call or it is for weeks together before you meet that client.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a kind of a long-term approach. So the first dimension is about sincerity. And I'm kind of putting very simplistic words here. They're not mentioned in the competencies, but when I try to do, you know, a joining the dot, not a force fitting with leadership competencies, this is what comes up for me. The first is sincerity. Why do I talk about sincerity? Because as part of coaching mindset, ongoing learning and development, ongoing reflective practice are so important. It was always important, but I think today the competencies actually call it out in so many words, right? And how is this similar to leadership? Simply because the best of leaders do a lot of work on themselves. They're always pushing the bar. They're always looking inwards. They're always seeking to grow. They're always looking at where they can improve, right? So they just don't walk in and, you know, become leader one day. So leadership is not a title, right? They're kind of working on it and ready to just show up when the world calls them. So sincerity is the first one. Second one is vulnerability. Being able to, you know, really, I think, be in tune and authentic to your emotions, and also being able to manage them, right? And if you see the usage of some of the words in the competency, right, it is also the dimension of vulnerability, of the coach, which is spoken about. And I'm sure both of you would agree, the most authentic leaders are the ones, and I think you just mentioned it about the way Magda shows up, right? Is to be able to be vulnerable, and I've seen that in Magda too. Magda, I've seen you on so many webinars, so many other spaces where you are completely okay. I still remember the last one where I was in your space was the one on social media. You were super critical in a public space. Yeah. If you were to probably just wear your marketeer's hat, you may not have done that. But I think you are who you are. And what does that open out for others? Others who are listening in are then saying, hey, it's okay to make these mistakes. It's okay to, it's okay if I've been 15 years in coaching practice and still don't even have an Instagram account. Right? You're allowing people to, be in that vulnerability zone, which is what a coach does. Right? And the third one is awareness of self. And, there's a beautiful mention of awareness of your intuition and using it to serve the client. Great leaders do that too. They're very aware of the system, the energy, and which is why sometimes all decisions are not number-driven decisions, not head-driven, not just based on statistics and, plans. Sometimes they just take very intuitive calls, which of course comes with a huge amount of risk. But it's not intuition, it's not rash intuition. It's intuition that's developed with a lot of awareness and self-work. So I don't know, when I was just thinking about it, these three things stood out for me: sincerity, vulnerability, and awareness, which I think are fabulous qualities or competencies for a leader to have.
Absolutely. And I think combine that with the other part, Vijay, the part on accountability, right? Because leaders take a lot of accountability. They have a sense of accountability to themselves, to others, to the greater good of what they're doing. And combine that also with the way people listen, the active listening, the accountability piece. There was another piece in my mind that I forgot about now. It'll come back just now. But if you do some work around that, it belongs both to a coaching mindset or the way coaches show up, and it belongs to the space of leading. Oh, results focused, accountability and results focused, right? Leaders are results focused people.
Yeah.
They are people-centric, process-driven, and results-focused. Similar to a coaching process. There are so many times I point out to coaches who say, competency to establishing an agreement is transactional. And I go, no, read the definition of this core competency. Go back and read what this definition of the core competency is. It talks about process and relationship. If it talks about a relationship, then it's talking about meaningfulness, purpose, value, what's below the surface for you. How is that only transactional? Of course, it's transformational, or it's person-centric on who you are and how you are showing up, right? So coming back to that point I was making, it's leaders have the sense of accountability in everything they do. They show a lot of empathy too. Even in the sense of accountability, empathy shows up. And yeah, accountability goes with progress. I think that's why I brought in CC2, because there's a sense of progress starting right from the beginning of the coaching session. And of course, results driven. Just like coaching, when clients walk away, they have some kind of actions, even if the action is about to think more about it, but it's action orientated. A good leader does the same, right? There's action orientated. And Magda, you have a lovely slide there on a model that we developed in Coacharia. If you don't mind sharing that, please.
So while Magda's pulling that out, I'd like to check in with our coaches on the call. Is this direction? I mean, is this discussion really touching on the core of the topic, or do we need to be looking? Would you like us to look at some of the other competencies and really pick out those nuances? If you feel so, just put it in the chat box so that we can focus on that.
The next one, Magda, the one with the circle that talks about resilience and this one. Qualities a leader should possess for effectively meeting challenges. Magda, you want to say something about this? Charisma, you have a lot of that.
Thanks. What do you want to say about this?
Well, not just to dogs, right? But to humans too.
Not just the dogs. No. Humans are good too. Yeah, I mean, what I can say is, yes, I agree with what's on this slide. Wondering, like, authenticity isn't on here.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering why. Yeah, Cindy, why isn't authenticity on here?
I think there's qualities here that equate to being authentic.
Okay.
So Ram put this together. Look at it with where the qualities head up to, the helicopter view. Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's kind of broken it down. Yeah.
You know what? Okay. Yeah. It's just, sorry. I got too focused on the words. So when I look at this and I think about what this all adds up to is just like, yes, you need to be tough and you need to have that something that makes people want to engage with you. But it's also, it sounds like just being a good human, right? Like engaging with people, respect them, be aware of what's happening, be open to feedback, to just be open. And it's like, to me, what is happening is I'm thinking, yeah, that's how we should approach when we work with clients, right? It's like we're on this kind of same playing field, almost like we're equal. I'm not better than you. I'm not worse than you. We're just here. We're two people. And my job as coach is to listen to you generatively and to believe that you, the client, can achieve your goals. And same thing, I think, as a leader. It's my job here is to kind of help you bring out the best in yourself for different reasons, right? With coaching, you're there for the client and that's who you're there for. That's it. It starts and ends with the client. With leadership, it's obviously, me in my leadership position. It's the company, it's the teams, a whole bunch of things that reasons why you're doing this, whatever this is. But end of the day, it's these qualities lead to bringing out the best in the people you're working with. That's what's coming up for me when I look at these words. And Cindy has vanished.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm here. Because the screen was on screen share, I put myself off. Vijay, anything here stands out for you? Any qualities here that you want to pick out?
Okay, the one that kind of does not connect, and in fact, I would like to put it as a bit of a question mark, not really with leadership. I mean, I'm finding it a little difficult to not kind of bring in the coaching hat as we even look at this, right? I mean, I'm not supposed to be wearing that, I'm supposed to look at it as just leadership. But, my mind just kind of keeps looking at both spaces. I think all of this, I think quite undoubtedly part of leadership traits. And equally, I think coaching traits. But the one thing that does not connect so well is charisma. So I'm wondering, what would that translate to for a coach? Does a coach need to have charisma? I've never looked at it like that, but I think what sometimes, my clients tell me, and what I pick up is there is a quiet confidence that the presence of the coach brings into that relationship, right? While it is a relationship of equals, sometimes as coaches, we've got to be very mindful that the power equation may not be so equal. So it's very important for us to actually not give an impression the power equation is a bit lopsided, right? Especially if the client's much older. The coach is much older, much more experienced, has seen more of life and work and all that compared to the client. So it tends to automatically bring in an imbalance of sorts. While that is on one hand, on the other hand, clients want to be in a space with a coach who can give them that feeling of confidence and authority. Authority not on them, but authority on their profession, on their subject. It's like going to a doctor and going to that doctor who you can walk into and instantly just feel more confident, even without the diagnosis. So is that what charisma of leadership translates to for a coach? Or is there something else? Because I'm not able to see a connect as to why a coach, or what difference charisma will make to a coach.
Well, so this one is for the leaders. Sorry, can I just add a second? Because to me, it's presence. I think maybe charisma, just like every word has a denotation and a connotation, right? I suspect that the connotation for you for charisma is a little different than maybe what was intended here. Because charisma isn't necessarily being, a personality or being extroverted or whatever. It's being present. And to me, like, when you think about, let's talk about Ram, because he put this together, so he gets to be on a spot. It's so funny to me when people connect with him for the first time in like a webinar, let's say, where he tends to be very serious and reflective. And they go, oh yeah, he's such a, he's serious, but he's inspirational. I'm like, Ram is serious? Because the Ram I know is such a silly bugger. Like, I don't know, it's just, he's such a warm, kind-hearted person. And I know he can be serious, but in my mind, he's always just, jolly Ram who's smiling and poking fun at me. So, but in both cases, like, he's charismatic when he's being, silly Ram, and he's charismatic where he's being the serious and quiet and reflective Ram. And he's being charismatic when he's leading you through meditation, and he's just literally sitting there with his eyes closed, He does this is how he listens. You're like, what the heck is happening? But, in your first time you meet him, you might be like, what the hell is happening? But then you realize that this is part of his charisma. This is his presence. Like, he's shutting himself off to other stimuli, and he's 100% focused on you and what you're saying. And so I think charisma is a very subjective thing. It's a very definitional thing, but I think it translates to presence. And
it's that,
want to follow a vegetable.
Sorry, Magda, I didn't mean to talk over you. Go on.
No, just that you don't want, like, we talked about followers and leaders, right? You don't want to follow a vegetable. Like, a vegetable is expressionless and just sits there and has zero energy of any kind, right? So this is like, I think charisma is about the presence, the energy, whatever that energy is. And we know that we all have different energies.
Absolutely. It's like the sense of something, right? All put together. Because two people could have the same academia, same knowledge, same da-da-da-da. But there's an attraction to one that's more than the attraction to the other. Then you have to question, well, what is this attraction, right? And maybe there are other words you want to call it, but charisma, I know, is a word that Ram called it. We all, you're attracted to somebody for some things that they have that's different from others.
So my question then to you, Cindy, is, as a coach, what is that little extra that, for example, you bring into your clients that you would have anyway as a leader in a different context?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? I mean, Vijay, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that people make reference to me as a sought after executive coach, or I would become the person of choice if they were choosing. Now, I don't know the reason, what is that X factor as yet. It's not fully in my awareness. And sometimes...
Can I offer a suggestion for you?
Oh yeah, go.
Well,
Made it
look, we
easier
talked
for
about
her.
my issues. We talked about Ram. We haven't talked about yours. No, I think what you bring, and I've heard this others say that too about you, Cindy, is the space. And Vijay was talking about the potential inequality as well that could be in a coaching conversation. I feel the way that you give space to people, that breathing room, it can be very unnerving sometimes. It can be very annoying sometimes to some people who can't shut up. But it also is it's like a great equalizer. It gives space for someone to formulate their thoughts. It tells them that you have permission to not say anything if you don't want to. It's okay. And I think with executives, especially, there's the expectation actually of charisma. There's an expectation of having to always be on, always be right, like, go. Whereas you bring this, let's take a breath. You have permission, you give yourself permission to just think through this. And I think that's what's really special. You're not driving them, you have to have a solution right now.
So maybe that's also a quality of a leader, right? Yeah?
Maybe, yeah.
So while I would invite you to think about that, Cindy, the one thing I want to just say on this before we probably shift gears is oftentimes coaches and I would say leaders even are not conscious and aware of what's that X factor they bring into the space. And I remember you once talking about signature style in the context of personal branding. And I remember that today. I think we should all, right, as coaches, really know, and this is not about going and telling the whole world. You might want to, right? But it's about just knowing that, I bring this in, and this probably is what, makes me who I am, or for people to perceive me the way I am. And it will be equally useful for leaders to know that. It's not necessarily just your strength, but it's also about that, that subtle factor that you bring in to relationships, to spaces, to a system. And I think that also comes because of a lot of reflective practice, right? When you keep reflecting, you will know where is it that you are lacking and what is it that you really bring.
So let's raise another point, right? Because you spoke about thinking. Leaders are also very good at critical thinking. Like the expanse of thinking, critical thinking, expand what's going on. There's a lot of, why are we doing this? What's the purpose of this? Who are we serving here, right? There's a lot of questioning around the greater good or whatever you're doing. In small ways and in large ways. Small ways for yourself, large ways for others, for your followers. Coaches are also quite, having a coaching mindset means we do enough critical thinking, creative thinking, thought-provoking kind of thinking. Like, I always say to coaches, get used to asking yourself, what is the reason behind that marker? Why are we asking that? You know what I'm talking about. I can see the smile on your face. You made us discuss, because of your question on core competency 2.3, meaningfulness and purpose, we spent 3 hours discussing that in a masterclass, right? Why do we ask about meaningfulness and importance of a goal to the client? Now, coaches, if they develop that kind of why, You don't need to ask it in coaching, but it's your own reflection and introspect. You deepen your understanding of core competencies and markers, and you deepen the way you coach. That's how it shows up, right? You have a deeper sense of coaching, and depth here means staying with the will of the client, client-centric. A very similar approach to leaders doing that to serve their followers better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Cindy. And which is why, going back to your point about establishing and maintaining agreements is certainly not transactional. And I think great leaders also adopt this, right? Usually, so let's say when you're embarking upon a new project or a new initiative or a new something, right? A market opportunity. The best leaders in the room would kind of look at it very fundamentally, right? What's the vision? What's the mission? What's going to be the strategy? So, I can almost kind of visualize the 2.1, the 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, just falling like that, right? Even something like a 2.4, what is it that we need to resolve or address? And that is something, a leader leading a team or, kind of embarking on something would certainly think about. It's not necessarily about, just kind of jumping in and, getting stuff done. There is a whole lot of this thinking, which I think you've used the right word. It is critical and expansive thinking, right? And even in evoking awareness, it is about going beyond the present issue, going beyond the present context, right? Not necessarily about the here and now. And which is how leaders are able to exploit opportunities which are far bigger and bolder than the present problem. So it's not just leadership. So management and being a manager, being a good manager, management is about, in a sense, resolving the here and now, the present issues. Leadership is going beyond. It's far more expansive. It's being able to look a little bit into the future and do the right thing, not just for the present set of people, but for the generations of employees or people to come.
Yeah, I love that point. I must raise that before we round up on the webinar. This emergent future or the emerging future and bringing it into the now. I think Magda does that brilliantly, right? You are future focused, but you know how to bring components of the future into the now, knowing that you're going to get a greater result. Really, and coaching is like that, right? Coaching is very future focused. That's why we ask clients in simple ways and in big ways, what is the goal they want for the session? Or what do they want to work on? In the very same way leadership does that, right? Yeah. It foresees or it looks at the emerging future. Yeah, I got this big, magnifying glass that looks into the future and bring components of that into the now that we can start working on. Magda, this is for you.
Thanks.
So what did you see in our emerging future, right? What did you see that was so glossy-eyed and you began to work on it? Glossy-eyed.
Honestly, it was from the beginning that I joined Coacharia. It was because of seeing the potential of what we can do as a collection of people who have a common language, and the impact we can make on our lives, our communities. I mean, I've had my share of terrible workplaces and amazing workplaces, very, very, very different. And just there, I could see from the beginning of Coacharia that even in workplaces, if we could make a tiny bit of a difference, which we can with coaching, that pays dividends. It grows, it spreads, it pays forward. Now, multiply that times a bazillion when you add in like the different cultural level to that. Multiply that even more if you take a skill you learned as a coach to your family, to your friends, to your community. And all of a sudden, you can take something as simple as embody a coaching mindset, and it blows up in influence everywhere. And to me, that's when I joined Coach Arya. I wanted to be part of something where I knew that there was already that the thing that it was doing can make a tangible impact somewhere, but it could be scaled to be as big as, frankly, as we want it to be. And that just keeps showing up and showing up. You know, when I first joined, we were mainly training coaches to work with executives, with other leaders. Now we have a youth leadership program. We're launching the first, I'm sure, on the planet accredited coach training for 18 and overs. So people who are not even done with uni can become credentialed coaches. Because we know that anybody can be a leader, as Vijay said in the beginning. Anybody can be a coach. It's just a matter of putting in, the work, understanding the language, the framework, and changing your mindset, working on yourself, becoming more aware of yourself, and then applying that. So yeah, I think maybe I didn't think we're going to change. No, I did think we're going to change the world when I joined. Yeah, I did think we're going to change the world when I joined, and slowly but surely, I think we're taking off good chunks of that. And even webinars like this, I cannot tell you. I thought it was cool when we were doing them, and yes, it's a lot of time and effort to do them every single week. And thank you, both of you, for contributing to that. So much. But it's one of the ways that we pay it forward, and we have that global reach. Every day, I kid you not, I get emails from people who will never spend $1 with us as a company, who email just to say thanks on social media and say, you know what, I saw this webinar, and when you talk to Cindy, just tell her that was awesome. I enjoyed it. I sent it to my friends. And to me, it's like, yeah, good job. Like, we just helped a person without having to engage in coach training, in coaching. Like, we just found a way to scale the thing that we know how to do and make it bigger than ourselves. And that feels good.
And because I'm such a good listener, I can't resist raising one more point that you spoke about. You're right. There's this ripple effect that you get out of coaching and you get out of leading, a systemic approach, both as this kind of systemic ripple effect approach, impacting layers of progress and layers of lives, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like a wave. It can start with a tiny little, and then by the time it gets from Australia to Japan, it's a tsunami. So hopefully no tsunamis, because that doesn't end well. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. No tsunamis for Australia, but I know what you mean.
For anybody.
Yeah. Vijay, you want to say something about that?
No, not about that. But as you were talking, one thing I know, I know we are closer to the end of our time. In summary, right, the mind keeps looking for, okay, so what's the net, right? Where's this all adding up? So what's coming up for me is possibly if you take the nouns, right, coach and leader, you can find a lot of differences, right? I mean, if you want to, you can make a table, you can make comparisons, differences, and all of that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, being a coach is also a profession, right? And being a leader is a role, possibly. But if you look at it as a verb, and we know in the new revised core competencies, everything is shifted to a verb, right? Nouns, much lesser nouns, more verbs. So on that theme, if you look at it as verbs, coaching and leading, then I think, the differences kind of really pale out. And I can just see the seamlessness coming, right? So while I think maybe the objective of this webinar was to really look at coaching competencies in the context of leadership, I'm now thinking leadership competencies in the context of coaching, right? If all coaches could embrace leadership competencies, or kind of And coaching is pretty much, it's not a team job. It's a pretty much, for most coaches, one man or one woman outfit, right? So there is nobody to really kind of lead. But what's beautiful is I think we should not forget those lovely leadership competencies and bring in leading, right? Not as a leading question for sure, but everything else leading into the coaching space. I think we can totally go from, great to even more great. And I'm quite excited about that thought, right?
Yeah.
What if I can show up with, and I go back, thank you, Magda, for bringing up that slide, and thank you, Cindy, for suggesting it. What if I can show up with resilience? What if I can show up with all of those things? And now I'm even excited about, I still don't like the word charisma, but I will figure out, I think I like the word energy or something, right? What if I could know what's the energy that I can bring into this space, right? Which is beyond coaching competency, which is beyond coaching skills, right? Which is
Absolutely
far more in the flesh, far more humane, which is who I am, right? And that to me will also show an authenticity. What if I can bring in all of this into my next coaching relationship or next coaching conversation? Just the thought of it is very exciting. So I think the two can go beautifully hand in hand, and if we can, it would do us a lot of good to leverage on those competencies and put it to whatever job we're doing, whether it's as a coach or whether serving as a leader.
Absolutely. So we're beginning to round up. We got about a minute or so, and I'll say my piece to round up. It seems like we've just opened this conversation. We've just done a bit of thought-provoking, and that we can, build on pieces that become more and more expanded for ourselves. As leaders and as coaches, whatever roles you are playing, let's expand it for ourselves and grow and progress. Magda, thank you for suggesting this webinar.
You're welcome. But like you said, it just opened up a can of worms. And here I thought, hey, Cindy, let's do a foundational, how does leadership and coaching overlap? It'll be 10 minutes. Yeah, that didn't happen. But that's why, shameless plug, that's why you are doing a whole course on this in July, I believe.
Yes.
Where you're going to be, teaching, facilitating, whatever the word is, a 30-hour course on coaching and leadership. So those of you who are watching now or on YouTube later, in case you want to go in deeper, hi Sailor, we will have something to offer you where you can go deeper and we can really explore this subject. Because it's fascinating. Just look, I'm just happy that I got to learn it. Honestly, that a day goes by that I don't think to myself, I wished when I was, 25 and had my first team, I wish someone had just given me even just the coaching competencies, even in like simple, non-jargon, 5th grade level reading language. I would have benefited so much, and my team would have benefited, and my company would have benefited, and my manager, poor guy, like he had to put up with me. Again, hi Roger, still love you, but I'm sorry also. Because now that I know what I know, oh my gosh, I know so much. I still just plain I don't know, but it's honestly mind-blowing. So my advice to anybody who is especially a new manager, but honestly any level manager, because we can all learn and we should always learn and nobody is perfect. My advice is get some coach training. That's not just a shameless plug for Join Coach Arya. Please do, we're amazing, obviously. But even just, like a little bit of coach training, reading about coaching competencies, it's going to do you good. It's going to change how you approach your team, how you think about your workplace, and how you interact with your manager. So that's like on the very, very basic level. Let's not even talk about how it's going to impact your relationships with your family, with your friends. Yeah, I think this is powerful stuff. So.
Thank you. Vijay, you want to say anything to close
Fancy.
and take us home, Vijay? Take us home. Close the webinar.
No, I think I've spoken a lot and very inspired by the space. So to imagine coming in completely ready to wind down to here I am, all charged up. Thank you so much, Magda and Cindy, for inviting me into your space. And it's always a pleasure to talk with both of you. I remember our last conversation on authentic professional leadership. And that's still very fresh in my memory. And I think this one was even better. So I did miss Ram, of course. So thank you. And I think, yes, the conversation has just started and lots of thoughts to expand.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone. Lovely sharing space with you today.
Thank you for hearing everyone, seeing everyone. Have a lovely day, evening, etc. And Cindy, I hope you feel better. I'm sorry about your teeth.
Okay, I'm Melly. Bye.
Thank you, Kawi.
Bye.